Take a deep breath. Know that you are loved. Take a deep breath. Know that you are loved. Breathe. You've arrived at the Evolving Lover podcast. This transmission is brought to you by the Online University of Love and Sexuality. We would love you to receive all of our podcasts and videos at www.uls.online. Now, here is your host, the funny, thoughtful, and loving Steve Burford. Enjoy.
Today, I've got Ben Rody on the line in Costa Rica. How you doing, Ben?
Doing good, brother. Good to be here.
Yes, we are very excited to talk to each other today. We've kind of known a bit about each other and been interacting on Facebook. He's got very, very interesting things going on in his work with sexuality and the awakening of this planet. Ben, my first question to you, as it is to all my guests, can you tell me a little bit more, expand on my short introduction about you, and tell the world who you are and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, perfect. So my wife and I, we are just lit up by expansion. How deep can we go? How high can we go? How much can we expand in this physical container? And here on this one life, on this one life, before we go into our next life, if we choose to incarnate again, but how many life experiences can we have right now, right? And you can't have the maximum amount of life experiences if you're not constantly growing every single day. So that's our job. That's our goal, is growth and expansion and hacking the matrix. And we've discovered the fastest way to enlightenment is sexuality. And so our first business together, when we met 5 years ago, and we got married a month after we met, and she was a preschool teacher and I was a mailman, and we got married and quit our jobs and started this crazy business called Explosive Sexual Healing. And it was a healing modality that we had developed, not based on anything else. I didn't know about Tantra, or I didn't know about enlightenment. It was based on brain scans and medical journals, and I was noticing that through this state of 30 minutes of G-spot orgasm, what I've coined full release G-spot orgasm, that women can reach a place where they can leave the matrix, they leave the computer program, and their identity, their complete identity is shifted. And it's like hacking a computer program, and you can install new programs. So that's how we started out. And then we kind of wanted to get out of the sexuality thing for a while, because once you get something figured out, growth is going to come from somewhere else. So we got into we created a business, or a program called 5D Business School, the evolution of entrepreneurship. We call it Hack the Matrix and Become Your Creator God. And so we developed an entirely new way of doing business in a higher state of consciousness, and creating new clients through meditation, manifestation, sexuality, stuff like that. A lot of the conscious business stuff that's going on right now, people are just getting so fed up with it. And so, yeah, that's what we do. My wife meditates for 6 hours to 9 hours a day. She's the oracle on the mountaintop, getting in the information. Then she comes out and gives it to me, and we translate it, we talk about it, we explore, and then we just get the craziest, coolest stuff in. So that's our life right now.
Wow. Where do I start with that? It's got to be probably about the G-spot orgasm. I know, actually, wait a minute. Sexuality and businesses go hand in hand, and our theme for the last podcast was very much on about how sexual energy runs your life, and when you channel it in the right way, you can do anything with it. And I think that's very much something you believe in.
Absolutely. So, orgasm is the highest state of consciousness humanly possible, without some kind of plant medicine experience. Especially this type of state that we use for orgasm that is above and beyond anything that our clients have experienced. And when we first started, we worked with a lot of tantrikas that came to us saying, oh yeah, I experience orgasm for hours at a time, but it's a different type of orgasm. It's the kind of orgasm that is so intense that when you get to that point, there's a voice in the head that says, go no further. If you let go, you're going to die. If you keep going, you're going to die. And so they stop, right? And what's beyond that is a death of the identity. It's a death of the voice that says you're not good enough, that I can't, that I'm damaged, that whatever. And so from that space, you access source. You reach up and you grab a hold of source, and you hand your message, your manifestation, your desire directly to source instead of just, praying for it. You hand your message to source, and we all know that we manifest through vibration. Everything that we have in our life, we have because of the vibration that we're at and the vibration that we're calling in. And so that's where we want to manifest from, is at the highest vibration humanly possible. And then with intention, set that intention at that space, and from there, call it in. It also helps a lot with relationships too, because when you have access to the state of 30 minutes of G-spot orgasm, and it can come easily and effortlessly and instantly, there's never anything to fight about again. You just take it into the bedroom, and 30 minutes later, nobody remembers what you were arguing about in the first place.
What do you think is so healing about the orgasm? Why does that state put us in healing traumas of the past?
Yeah, well, the important thing is that it's an integrated orgasm. So people can have orgasm but not be connected to it, right? Not be connected to their body at all, and have an orgasm and think, well, yeah, I know how to come. But there's the important part is the process that we go through to get to that 30 minutes of, again, full release G-spot orgasm. So the first thing we have to do is clear out all the blocks to getting there, because whatever her stuff around being, by the way, we work with leaders, right? We work with people who are on stage or want to be on stage, spreading their message, helping the planet in some way, helping people in some way. And so there's always a direct correlation between their sexuality, their orgasm, and their business. And so whatever comes up around being seen in orgasm or in pleasure or in pain, being heard, there's a whole process that we go through. We start out with the pain portion, we get into the trauma, we get into the anger, we get into rage, we get into sadness, we get into whatever is coming up. Whatever comes up is exactly what has to come up to be cleared. And so once that stuff starts to clear, then she naturally starts to open up. She becomes an empty channel. And then we can get into higher states of consciousness through climax. But what happens beyond any level of climax she's ever experienced, and she leaves the matrix, she leaves the computer program. It's like she's jumping off a cliff. She doesn't know where she's going to land, but she trusts us, so she lets go. And when she comes back down, she's bawling, she starts crying, and then she starts laughing hysterically every time. And she's like, oh my God, it's all such a joke. It's all just a game. It's not even real. I've been taking myself way too seriously. I can do anything. And so that's what's empowering about it, is the full scope of it, the full integration. It's kind of like walking on coals, at a Tony Robbins event, or bending rebar on your throat or something. It's like your body can do something you didn't know was possible, only it's pleasurable, and you can do it at home again and again. You don't have to create a bed of coals to walk on. And you can do it with your partner, and it anchors your experience to your partner. So when you're looking into your partner's eyes while you're gone off the planet and in this highest state of consciousness possible, it's an anchor is a physiological response attached to an external state. So now the external state is, her husband, her partner, looking into her eyes, and it creates a response anytime she looks into his eyes. It's a really cool thing.
Is it a Ben Modi copyrighted experience?
Well, there's nobody else that I've ever seen teaching it. It's certainly not any kind of tantra sacred spot thing. I've never actually learned any of that stuff, but we used to tour the circuit teaching it all at all the tantra conferences, and yeah, definitely noticed a difference. So is it copyrighted? No. People learn it at our events and they go off and they, we have practitioners around the world. We have practitioners in Australia and Canada and the US and I don't know where else, Costa Rica, all over the place. So
my one question about it is it more to do with the technique, or is it more to do with the woman opening her whole system, nothing to do with too much the technique? Or
there's the $1 million question. Yeah. So that's the question right there. And anybody can get a $5 ebook that'll teach you some kind of G-spot technique, right? The internet stats on the internet from doctors and scientists say that 1 out of 3 women can achieve G-spot orgasm. And so what we say is we work with the other 2/3 of women, because it's all a mindset. There's a map to getting there. There's an orgasm map that's the same in every single woman. The pressures may vary, the tempo may vary, but the same stuff is going to come up around being seen, around being heard, around receiving intensity as pleasure. And there's a huge process that goes through to get to that point where she's able to allow herself to let go. And it's 90% in the head. The technique's the easy part. Any guy can learn the technique. Of course, there's a different levels of sensitivity. My wife calls me the G-spot whisperer. I always know exactly what's going on. And so that part is a trained experience, but usually what happens is, even if we used to sell just the audio course, we have an audio training course for training our practitioners, and we used to sell that just on its own. And people would come back and say, my wife just, she just yelled at me when I tried it. And it's because there's so much clearing that needs to happen, and it's so hard to do within the relationship dynamic. She's yelling at him, he gets triggered, yells at her, she gets triggered, yells at him. And there's this whole dynamic that gets so difficult, right? Because it's so much part of the consciousness and part of, just it's in the head. And so when we take them out of their relationship and into our 10-day mystery school retreat and teach them this process, once her brain gets it, and we say we activate the G-spot, the G-spot works through the vagus nerve that bypasses everything else and goes directly into the brain. Like, you can have a woman that's paralyzed from the waist down and she can't feel her clit, she can't have a clitoral orgasm, but she can have a G-spot orgasm. It's a whole different beast. And so we use it to bypass everything and create an entirely new state for her. And so once she gets it and she gets the steps and she gets what the feelings are, and it's kind of like tuning a radio frequency. And you have to fine tune it, and then you find the channel, and then you turn up the volume. That's kind of what it's like. She has to find the frequency within her, and now once she knows where it is, then she can turn it up. So the technique is in the 8-week audio course where we train people how to do this work. The technique is only on the last module. This first 7 weeks are all about the mindset, getting her to that place, how to handle everything that's going to come up on the way to get there. And then we start talking about the science and how her pain tolerance doubles in orgasm, basically meaning the sensation changes. And so the intensity, the sensation of intensity she initially feels in the G-spot turns into pleasure when she puts herself in orgasm using the clitoris. So oftentimes that's the the way that we get her into this level of G-spot orgasm the first time is she puts herself into clitoral orgasm, and then we ramp up the G-spot orgasm, and the clitoral orgasm gets anchored into the G-spot, and so now her G-spot knows how to feel pleasure, and now we turn up the volume on that. So there are 4 things that women initially will experience when their G-spot starts to get stimulated. Either they'll feel nothing, it'll be numb, or they'll feel pressure, or they'll feel pain, which is actually kind of rare. Usually when they say, "Ow, that hurts, I'm feeling pain," and you ask, "Is it actually pain or is it intensity?" And they'll say, "Yeah, it's just intensity." Okay, so intensity is the other one, and the other rare one is pleasure. But only some women experience pleasure right off the bat. But whether it's pain or numbness or intensity, we can train their brain to experience all of those things as pleasure at some point. And then once that is done, then the technique isn't even an issue. So yeah, that's the easy part.
This transmission is brought to you by the Online University of Love and Sexuality. We would love you to receive all of our podcasts and videos at www.uls.online.
What about guys listening? They're going, "Where's my 30-minute orgasm?"
Yeah, it's cool for the guys too. So these sessions that we do, the multidimensional awakening sessions, again formerly known as explosive sexual healing, they've evolved. It's the same exact thing for the men. And in our 10-day multidimensional awakening retreat, the men go through sessions as well. The men receive sessions as well. And so the women, it usually takes 6 sessions for them to get everything they need out of the work. And the men, it usually takes 3 sessions for them to get everything they need, because men don't have G-spots. G-spots are a little bit more complicated. So it takes a little more to work through. Plus, women's sexuality has obviously been handled much differently in our society than men's sexuality. And so there's just different things to work through. And anger is usually the point we get to in the session that allows everything to move quicker. And usually men are pretty easy. It's pretty easy for men to go into their anger, and women usually default to sadness. And then we get to their anger from their sadness. Men are better at feeling anger, and we get to their sadness through their anger. But anyway, for the men, it's the same process, but at the very end, instead of the 30-minute G-spot orgasm, we have them build up their sexual energy and reach a 9.5 on the orgasm scale, 10 being climax, right? So they hold themselves right at the edge of a 9.5, a 9 3/4, a 9 4/5, right? And they're just holding themselves on the edge and letting that sexual energy build and 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 build in their body. And then without ejaculating, we have them stop and do a breath work technique that shoots their sexual energy up their spine and creates a full-on Kundalini rising. And so, they're like speaking in tongues, and, their body's shaking all over the place, and they're in full body orgasm that can last 30 minutes. And they're not on the planet, and, they're experiencing more sensation, more pleasure in their body than they ever knew was possible. So that's how we access it from through the men. But yeah, it's still a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's these activations that are really helping people, I think. I know from my experience, kind of similar to, well, maybe not so similar, but breath work, in that sense, it was similar. I think breath work is the key to everything, even if you're not being sexually stimulated. You can go to breathwork workshops and can change everything and how the energy works in your body. And it's these activations that really change the way you use orgasm through your body. I mean, what you might want to tell the listeners, what kind of orgasms do you have in your life as a man? I am telling the audience a bit about mine, but it'll be useful to hear another man's orgasm stories.
Yeah, so I don't I don't put a whole lot of emphasis on having any type of extraordinary orgasm in my daily life. I put a lot of emphasis on control, whether that means being able to have sex for an hour or two and then coming, or having sex and being able to come in 30 seconds. There are times where with we have 3 kids under 4 years old, and so when we get a date night, we like to go have sex in a public bathroom or something at the wherever we're at, or in the backseat of the car on the side of the mountain road. And sometimes we only have 30 seconds to 60 seconds, I think that that's what's been really important to me, is just knowing where I'm at, knowing where my body's at. And I call it the arousal counting technique, and it works for women and men in different ways, but it's a very important technique where you get so focused on your pleasure that you know exactly where you're at all times. So I mentioned the scale of the orgasm scale of 1 to 10, and the men staying at a 9.5. And so it's the same thing for women that don't know how to experience orgasm, that maybe they've never experienced orgasm in their life. It's because they don't know where that frequency is on the radio dial, right? And so when we get them hyper tuned into where is your pleasure, and then they get 100% focused on only pleasure, right? They're not focused on their schedule or their kids or the dishes or, running errands or the paint on the ceiling, right? It doesn't matter. They're 100% focused on the pleasure. And so from a 1, they know what a 2 feels like. And from a 2, they know what a 3 feels like, so they can get themselves there. And then they know what a 4 feels like, and they know what a 10 feels like, so they can get themselves there, right? So for me, it's all about body awareness and knowing where you're at all times, and knowing that I can stay at a 9.5 for as long as I want to, or I can go to a 10 as quickly as I want to. And I'm not somebody who advocates for seminal retention or saving your seed. I think that if people know how to raise their sexual energy, if they know how to focus on it and from nothing create sexual energy. I mean, I could be exhausted after a long day of doing whatever the hell it is that makes me exhausted, right? Having three kids, running errands, all that kind of stuff. I can still generate my sexuality from nothing, even if I've got nothing, even if I'm sick and throwing up, I can generate it from nothing. And that's, I think, the most important thing in a relationship, is to be able to generate attraction and love for your partner, even when you don't want to, and even when you don't feel like it. And so, yeah, I mean, having an orgasm doesn't drain me. It doesn't drain my sexual energy. It does. I can have sex again because I know how to cultivate it, because I know where that radio frequency is, and then I know how to turn it up. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's taken me for a while to work out what the Raw Attraction Magazine ejaculation policy is. What do we recommend? And something like similar to what Ben's saying is, it's basically listen to your own body. And if you're ejaculating and you don't feel so great afterwards, or you feel tired and drained, then you shouldn't be ejaculating so much until you've got the ability to cultivate your sexual energy and not feel drained afterwards.
And here's kind of the way to look at it is, I can use orgasm to fall asleep, or I can use orgasm to energize me. So after I have an orgasm, if it's like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever my bedtime is that night, and I'm trying to get to sleep, then it's like, okay, thanks, babe. Okay, we got it. All right, love you. All right, good night. Or I can notice the chemical release into my brain that is making me feel tired, and I could ignore it, and then I can push through it. And so we have sex every morning before the kids get up, and every night after the kids go down, and sometimes once or twice in between. And so, in a time where we're just like attracted to each other, we want to have sex. I don't go like take a nap afterwards every time. Like there are times where like I've got to work or I've got to do something, and so I'm able to focus not on being tired. Again, where's your focus going, right? Focus not on being tired, but focus on being energized by this amazingly gorgeous woman that just rocked my world, and feeling the attraction still, right? Because of course, most men fall asleep afterwards, they lose their attraction, they don't want to cuddle, whatever, or most unconscious men at least. And I can focus on those things because I know what's important to focus on for my wife, for my relationship, for myself, for my intimacy. And so, yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Yeah, I think intention is everything with that. If I am going to have a ejaculatory orgasm, I actually call it like a cosmic orgasm now, where the intention is going out cosmically with that seed that's being planted out there. So that's
we say never waste an orgasm.
Yeah,
there's always an intention. There's always an intention with our orgasm at this point. What is it we're creating next? What is it we want in our life? So every single orgasm we have, we attach it to something and send it out to source.
I tend to be very general in my intentions. Like usually it's something like to manifest the highest life vision for me and this planet. Like not attributing, cool. I don't know, houses, partners, or children, or anything to it. I just simply put that out, and whatever shows up.
Cool.
Be it challenging or not challenging. So yeah, that kind of works for me. In terms of the other types of orgasm, I've mentioned them for me on the podcast a couple of times. I can't really give the process of getting there apart from going to these breathwork workshops or workshops like Ben does and activating yourself and really understanding your body. But like if what I would call the third eye is stimulated, or my forehead, usually like back and forth with tongue of my partner, I can have an infinitely long, what I'd call a brain orgasm, where every neuron is just on fire, and I can't even describe it to people of what really it's like, but it certainly activating that spot will do something. Tapping on my heart will activate my heart, or lifting back and forth does seem to activate the heart as well, and my throat. So my heart, my throat, and my third eye, extremely sensitive to going into orgasm, especially the brain. And then tapping on the base of my spine or even digging a nail into the bottom of my spine will just shoot quote unquote Kundalini energy up my spine. And for me, mixing those energetic orgasms with the more animalistic fucking is kind of where I'm at the moment, just for anyone's
Are you saying licking back and forth on the heart and on your forehead?
Yeah, like flicking like left and right, I would say, not up and down, but that kind of motion. But I've only the one partner I was with, she managed 15 minutes. I need like a round of 4 people or something, because
it gets tiring.
Yeah, it breaks their tongue. So either that, or I need some robot.
You need to get like
machine.
a tongue, sex toy, some kind of tongue sex toy to keep you going. Battery operated.
Fuck, I might have to look that up. If that isn't invented, I'll have to
Patent it now.
Yeah, left and right flicking tongue back and forth, and then I've got to have a program that gets you to these stuff. Maybe we should do a partnership on that.
Oh, the entrepreneur's mind can never shut off.
Yeah, certainly not. Kind of lost my trail of thought, but
And where were we? Orgasm, tongues. Okay.
orgasms, tongues, sex. So my next question is around the awakening stuff. I know you're very kind of prominent voice, certainly in the big network you've got on Facebook, and kind of having these back and forth questions with people. I see you often posting questions.
Love it.
What does this whole awakening of what you see as going on the planet, what's kind of going on for you at the moment?
Oh man, that's a big question. I see a lot going on right now, and I love the conversation. You know, like you said, I post questions, and I haven't been posting anything for a while because I've just been in my own journey, my own blissed out journey over here with my wife and my kids, and just everything cool that's happening right now. But really, it's a different journey for every person. You know, there's no one size fits all journey. Everything is only teaching a feedback mechanism for people to be able to recognize which direction to go on their path, right? And so, you know, because there are people on the opposite ends of every spectrum of any belief system. I mean, you've got everything from Zen, Buddhism, and Taoism, and on the other end, you've got, you know, the crazy sex stuff. You know, you've got Christianity, you've got Mormonism, you've got you got Hindu, you've got
Trumpism.
You got Trumpism, you got it all, man. There's like one of everything out there. And so so what people need to do to awaken is the opposite of what they've been doing, right? Because that's what, you know, it's such an interesting thing, because we can, you know, we have a weekly membership call. We have a membership program called Sovereign Universe, or Sovereign You. And our weekly calls, we answer questions for people on their awakening process, about enlightenment, or about their sexuality, about their relationship, or their life purpose, their business, their practice, stuff like that. And we can get two people on that ask the same exact question back to back, and we'll give them the exact opposite answers. And it's because, like I said before earlier on the show, we're here for expansion. We're here to experience everything that's possible for us. And, you know, I think one of the most misinterpreted things about Buddhism is walking the middle path. So people interpret this to mean, you know, don't go too far on one end of the spectrum. But if you've never been to one end of the spectrum, you actually don't know what it's like to be there. You don't know what it feels like to be there. So you don't actually know where you are on the spectrum. You don't actually know where the middle path is. You know, for some people, the middle path looks like just being lazy. It looks like not doing anything in a way that actually doesn't get them a result. And so the way that we look at it is, we need to, as a society, experience both ends of every single spectrum, and at least have a solid understanding, a body level understanding of it, or else we're just going to have this crazy duality where we don't understand the other side and they don't understand us, right? So we've got the Republicans and the Democrats, and the Republicans think they're right and the Democrats are wrong, and the Democrats are convinced they're right and the Republicans are wrong. But it's all bullshit. It's all a fucking joke, right? And you know, there's good stuff on both sides, but putting the titles on it and identifying with it, with the title, it creates a level of staying asleep, of unawareness of the other side. But if you can actually figure out, if you can actually put yourself into the other side and become that for a little while, go to the opposite end of the spectrum, swing to the opposite end of the pendulum, then you get entirely new information. Your life, we call it life points, right? Like when you have a bigger understanding based on, the stuff you contemplate, you have life points, and then you actually understand the other side's point of view. And I'm at the point right now where, like, I'm not able to. I actually have no idea what is Republican and what is Democrat anymore. I have no idea. Like even things like good or bad, right or wrong, don't really hold any weight in my world right now, because I've been at both ends of every spectrum. And what happens when you've been able to access both ends of the spectrum is now you're able to collapse the anchor. You're able to collapse the polarity, and now you're right there in the middle with access to one side or the other. And every side is just tools for the tool belt, and most people don't have access to 50% of the polarities, right? They're stuck on one end. They're stuck trying to be good people, trying to do things right. And therefore, half of their life is operating on trying not to be bad and trying not to do it wrong. But it's like if we're looking at the spectrum of like rich or poor or loud or quiet, it's like quiet people try not to be loud. And if they don't actually have access to loud, then they're missing out on a whole aspect of, it's a very important tool to have, to be able to speak up and have your voice be heard. If they're afraid of not upsetting somebody, well, I can't upset them, right? If I'm loud, if I'm demanding, if I stand in my truth, what if I offend somebody? What if you do? Who cares? Stop trying to get it right. And so that's what real freedom is, or else we're just computer programs running based on how we've been created by our parents and society, and we think it's us at this point, but of course it's not. We haven't actually taken the time to discover who we are, what we want, what we stand for, because we only have the information from one end of the spectrum. So we think we know, but it's impossible. And that's the problem right now in society, is that people think they're right, as if right is a thing, and they haven't taken the time to actually get fully in the other side of the spectrum. And so I think that's what's going to be awakening, is when everyone is able to say, oh, I totally get it. I totally get where you're at, right? And so that's an important piece of even an argument. If you want to have a good argument, you can't just blast people and teach them your stuff and your side, and they're like, yeah, but you don't get it. You don't get my side. You don't get where I'm at. And you're like, yeah, because your side's stupid, right? But when you get to a place where you can actually own both sides, you become both sides, and you become total. You become complete. You become a whole individual. You become complex, right? You're not just a character in a movie with, it's like you're the good one, or you're the bad one, or you're, what creates a real hero that people like, or even a real villain that people like, is complexity. There's a little bit of good and a little bit of bad in them. And so, walking the middle path is like walking a tightrope. When you're walking a tightrope, you don't just stay center. You have to kind of sway back and forth. And as you're falling left, you have to move right? It's a constant balance. In order to walk that balance, you have to stay hyper lucid in the dream. You have to stay awake. You have to stay lucid. You have to know where you're at any given time. And so this requires paying attention. And so just taking the time to pay attention is a life-changing thing.
Do you actually think there's a practical way of doing this, of actually being compassionate and having self-responsibility? Or is it, like you said at the beginning, just a matter of everyone going on their own journey, finding themselves? For me,
good question.
For me, is just for context, that I would say I've got to this middle path now where you're talking about, but it's been through like massive personal and spiritual crisis, as I was speaking to you a little bit about before we got on, which I'm not going to speak about now, but like huge kind of dark night of the soul for 8 months, and various heartbreaks, and as well as alongside that, expanding my sexuality and kind of the same time exploring all that stuff, but been my own journey to get there. Do you think, so my question goes back to, is there practical ways, or do we have to go on our own journey?
Yeah, and that's the thing. We can only know other people to the extent that we actually know ourselves. And, people always talk about, we're all one. But on a higher dimensional level, we're all one. But then we came down here to have separate experiences, right? Mm-hmm. And so, knowing the things that I think are one piece of the puzzle, but there's also 7.5 billion people that have different points of view. And so the real goal here is, if we're all one, is to understand all of them, right? And become all of them. And so, that dark night of the soul is the most important thing a human being can come to really understand themselves. Because, it's not really until you are put in extremely uncomfortable places can you really know yourself. Because somebody can seem enlightened or seem awakened, and then you turn the heat up, you put the pressure on, and then you see how they react. And it's easy to be enlightened when you're the Dalai Lama or something, or some kind of Buddhist monk that is lives in an ashram and or a monastery, and doesn't have, they're celibate, they don't have a wife, they don't have kids. It's like, give the Dalai Lama a wife and see how, a wife that needs to be pleasured, a wife that needs to be kept happy, and let's see how long he stays enlightened. Give him a few kids and see how he handles it. It's like, you can't really test enlightenment until you've really tested it. And the same thing with unconditional love in a partnership. You can't really test unconditional love unless you've shown your partner the darkest sides of you, without holding back, without trying to be the best version of yourself. No, let your partner see your darkness. And that's where, when they can love your darkness, now you're free. Now you've realized, oh, my partner does love me no matter what. We can work through anything together. And from there, you're free. So of course there are some practical exercises to do all this, but people try to get other people figured out through psychology and through, people like to tell other people what to do. But I think people really need to focus on themselves some more. And, my wife and I took off the last year and a half from basically from our business. I mean, we used to travel and speak all over the place and hold events at our house all the time. And we moved into the middle of the jungle. Like, there's nothing around us. We're out here with the monkeys and the parrots. And, we really came out here to get away from everything and to really discover who we are when we don't have the conveniences of life. And, it was a year and a half of self-discovery. And now I can see myself in other people, right? And there's, this thing called judgment has gone away.
Yeah, I think the whole key to it is self-awareness, really, and awakening, as you say, within the dream. And the more aware you are of how aware you are, through your thoughts, through the reflections to you in your intimate relationships, your friendships, in the world around you, then that's basically what we're looking for, I think.
Yeah, let me say something about that real quick, because you just brought up a very important point. So I keep mentioning feedback mechanism, feedback. So being aware, like, everybody thinks they're aware. That's the problem. Everybody thinks they know what's going on. Everybody thinks they have an awareness. No, even the people that are the most asleep, they will never say, no, dude, I'm totally asleep. I have no idea what's going on. They're like, no, I know what's going on. You guys are crazy.
Which
You're
is
the crazy
worrying.
ones. Which is worrying, yeah. But that's the thing. And so that's where the feedback mechanism is important. Like, that's true awareness, is being able to actually have something to measure awareness around. And this is where we get to notice, because we've all got, it doesn't matter who we are, we all have pieces of our awareness that are actually limiting us. Even if it seems empowering, they're limiting us. And this is where, it's like, okay, you're aware, you're awake. How's that working out for you? Do you have your life partner? Are you looking for your life partner? Do you want? Yeah, you do. You don't have? Okay, what's going on here? Okay, how's your business doing? Right? Not that good? Okay, cool. Let's develop some new awarenesses. Right? Like let's actually develop some awarenesses that can now be brought down into the physical reality, created as being a benefit to our life. And
I think they're new belief systems, aren't they? Rather than the awarenesses, new paradigms of living to change. Because if you don't believe that you can have a successful business, then you're never going to have one. If you don't believe you're going to have the most beautiful partner for you, she or he is not going to turn up. So,
yeah, exactly.
Well, better cut it there, because I'm sure you've probably got to go and have sex, knowing your timetable that you just told me.
Jen's meditating right now. We had sex before the kids woke up. She'll be meditating for the next 6 hours, and then we'll figure something out. It's actually date night tonight, so.
Well, yeah, I know you're a busy man with many different things going on. So where can people find out more about your work?
Oh, man, I love it. So find me on Facebook, Ben Rode, Rode. And if you want a free month to our membership program, our Sovereign You membership program, where we have a Facebook page where you can ask questions and we do weekly calls, just message me and I'll hook you up with a free month. Or you can just email me, email my team at care@rodeinstitute.com, care@rodeinstitute.com, and just say you heard me on the podcast here, and we'll be and I'll give you a free month of Sovereign You. But yeah, go to rodeinstitute.com, RODE institute.com, and you can look at the membership program there, and all of our other programs, our 10-day multidimensional awakening retreat, mystery school, and our 5D business school. Got all kinds of stuff going on, but follow us, and we give away a lot of free stuff, a lot of free information, and just a lot of solid stuff on living the best life possible in every single area. So thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been fun.
This transmission is brought to you by the Online University of Love and Sexuality. We would love you to receive all of our podcasts and videos at www.uls.online.